I was looking over, or I was reviewing our, for the people watching at home, we did a live Facebook video about 2 weeks ago at an event that you put on. I had a chance to kind of review our interview, and you mentioned, I guess, as a result of the market crash of 2007, 2008, that has a lot to do with why building kind of halted for a little while, and that's why we don't have the inventory of homes that we now desperately need. Does that sound right?
Yeah, and there's another side of it too, the generations. The baby boomers are a huge generation and they are still at home and they're staying in their homes longer. And then the millennial generation is finally hitting that age where they're starting to buy their first home. But because the baby boomers are aging in place, the millennials don't have that option to move into those older typical first time homes that age group would be able to purchase. So they're moving into the market. There's nobody moving out of the market currently because that big boom is just staying in place.
They're staying
And
put.
so there's a huge input, and then compound that with the crash of '07 when builders were a little bit afraid to take they weren't able to take the risks and build more houses in COVID, where you can't get building supplies as fast as you need to. A lot of builders everybody froze, but people are still needing places to live. So we're kind of in a compounded trifecta right now of there's not very many homes, which is why I think construction and everybody should be building right now.
Yeah, and that's the big idea that you were pushing when we went live at your event a couple of weeks ago, was just how much more beneficial it is to build rather than to buy. And I think that's something I would love to touch on a little bit more today, because I guess coming from somebody who's outside of that world, I'm not a realtor, so I may not have like the know-how that you would have or other of your colleagues would have. In my head, I'm comparing it to buying a new car rather than buying a used car. It practically makes more sense to buy the used car. It feels like it would be more affordable. So in my head, well then why would essentially building a brand new home be more cost effective than buying a used one? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's costs of building they're definitely going up that you have to think about, but the rates are down. So they balance out actually over the long term. Another reason is better to build right now than buy. Say a $400,000 house goes on the market. It hits the market today. There's 15 agents taking buyers there, and they get 10 offers. A lot of those offers are going to be 10, 20, 30, even 40,000, maybe 50,000 over the asking price. So you are going to pay $450,000 for a house that was listed at $400,000. So now you ask a builder, hey, I want to build a house and my budget is $400,000. You can build that same, pretty close to that same house that you were going to purchase for 450 or even more. I've heard it's crazy in some areas they're going like hundreds of thousands of dollars over asking price. In my little corner in Southeast Idaho, 50,000 is the highest that I have personally heard of. But if you talk to a builder, I want to build this house, it's going to cost $400,000. You're going to pay $400,000 because you're not outbidding anybody else. You kind of get time. So you're changing your time for the bidding wars in the market. So you have to be able to have time like a year before you have to move and be in your new place, but you're going to get the home that number one, that you want, not that you're settling for, because that's the only thing you can find on the market. You're going to find exactly what you want. And you can afford, and you're not going to have to pay, so much over asking price. You're not going to have to drop any inspection contingencies. You're not going to have to drop your appraisal. You're not going to have to come up with more cash to beat out other buyers. So there's a lot of reasons why building is more affordable than buying right now.
And okay, that's making a lot more sense to me now. It sounds like the price gouging that's going on right now plays a huge factor in it.
Yeah. And it's not even the sellers that are overpricing that's doing the price gouging. Do I think that there's probably some of that a little bit? Maybe, but it's justified because there's so many people trying to get into the market that they can list it wherever they want and they'll still get buyers.
So, and you mentioned that as of right now, like the rates for building are down right now. So I'm curious.
So rates,
what were you
so
gonna
rates
say?
across the board are just down. Rates across the board are just down. Construction rates are down, mortgage rates are down, all lending rates are down right now. Historically, like our parents bought houses with, I don't know, like 14%, and they thought that was really great. So having a mortgage that you can get for under 4% is like free money. You can't make that. I mean, the equity that you're gaining just from living in the house is more than, like, it's outweighing the interest. Even if you don't upgrade your house or do anything, just living in it, you're making more money than you are paying out just by being there.
So I guess I have a two-part question then. Why are these rates so low right now, and how long do you think that's going to last? When we were talking last time, you said that those rates are naturally going, you think they're going to rise. What's the time frame that we have before those rates start to really go up?
That is out of my realm to answer. I don't speculate the market. It's up to the Fed. It's the money. That's out of my realm to answer. How long I think that's going to last, out of my realm as well.
Okay.
But rates can't go down anymore because they can't go below zero. So if they're going to move, they have to go up.
So you said that they can't go below zero. Does that mean that they're pretty close to zero right now?
Well, I've even seen one that was 1.6 yesterday. So really, if we're talking 1% above zero, it's not going to go lower.
That's just fine. So why is it that the rates are so low right now? Do you know?
That's a Fed. The
Okay.
Feds control the mortgage rates and the lending, and you can talk to a lender way more about that, and they'd be way more knowledgeable about that. I just get the information from them and pass it along.
And you work with it. Excellent. So you said at the beginning of our conversation here that you kind of got into the game at a good time. Does that mean that you're relatively new as a realtor, or have you been doing this for a while?
That's relative. I was told last week I can't tell anybody I'm new anymore. I've been doing this long enough, but I still feel like no matter how long you've been in the real estate industry, there's always something you should learn. You should be learning every day. You should feel new at something because there's so many things to experience that you can't ever be completely experienced in everything.
I think with any career that you're truly passionate about, you're always going to feel a little bit new to it. You're always going to feel like there's so much more about it that you don't know than what you do know.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
Yep.
It's the
Life
same.
is about learning. So
Absolutely. So at what point did you decide that this is what you wanted to do?
as a career?
Yes.
So my family is in construction. They've been in construction for as long as I've known them. That's just kind of our world. In the crash of 2007, my husband was a builder and we kind of got kicked out of that market a little bit. We were still newlyweds, had little tiny kids, and we had to go to work for other reasons just to keep going during that time. But once the market started coming back, I realized that there's definitely a need for that. And so we've kind of dabbled back into that market a little bit. And honestly, I loved the mindset of being an entrepreneur. And this, honestly, it kind of fell in my lap. And it has been the greatest blessing, aside from my family, that I've had in my life.
You say you love the entrepreneur mindset of it. You get a certain sense of fulfillment from that aspect of being a realtor.
Absolutely. This is when you're a realtor, you own your own business. Yes, you are brokered underneath a company, which they have a lot of trainings and regulations for you to follow, but you are responsible 100% for your results. You can't blame it on your company because there's so many free resources out there. It doesn't matter what company you're with, you can succeed wherever you are, and you are 100% responsible for that. And I love that.
On one hand, it can be kind of overwhelming because there's a sense of unpredictability about it. Like you really decide so much more on whether or not you're going to have a paycheck next month, essentially. There's a lot more,
absolutely.
there's a lot more responsibility on your shoulders, but
yep. And you have to play for the long game. When you become a real estate agent, your clients, especially building, if you get a client that wants to build a house, you're like 6 to 8 to 9 months out before that transaction finalizes. And so you have to play the long game and be consistent in your work. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. It's not going to work for you. You're not going to be able to hang on that long. So you really have to be careful with your time and manage your relationships well, and just really play for the long game.
it sounds like a incredible amount of required dedication. And there's so many ways that it could just, you slack off on it for a week and it feels like anything, it would all just kind of fall apart.
It can. There's definitely something to be said about keeping momentum in your business and just keep on hustling hard. And it's good though. It's really, really good.
I'm glad that you feel that accomplishment from it. That is awesome.
Thank you.
So your company or your entity, Home Sweet Idahome, I wanted to talk a little bit about that because you work for HomeSmart Premier Realty.
Mm-hmm.
What is the correlation between HomeSmart Premier Realty and Home Sweet Idahome?
So HomeSmart Premier Realty is my brokerage. And then Home Sweet Idahome is my real estate company that is brokered under HomeSmart. Home Sweet Idahome is completely 100% me right here.
How long have you been running under Home Sweet Idahome?
Almost 2 years, 2 years next month.
And what is the philosophy behind that name? What was it that brought that name about?
So real estate is my career, but I am also a mom of 5 kids, young kids. I have a husband and I have to manage a home. My number one priority is making sure that my home is taken care of. Real estate is all secondary to that. I don't know if I want to call it my passion or my life's work, but my purpose right now is to make sure that my home is a good place. And having a sweet home makes it just feel a little bit more fun. So Home Sweet Home, that's what we do. And I have lived in Idaho my entire life. I was born here, raised here. I love Idaho. I love everything about it. I love all 4 seasons in one day. I love the mountains and the beaches. I don't always love the cold, but I do love the snow and the things that you can do. And I love the summers and that you can play. So Idahome, that's where I will be. I'm never leaving this place. So Home Sweet Idahome.
I assume you grew up in Idaho Falls.
I did not actually. I grew up in a little tiny suburb of Blackfoot called Riverside.
Okay. Very cool. It's one of those places that you what's that phrase?
If you're not a local, you won't know where it is, or you blink and you miss it. One of those.
It's a place that cannot be found except by those who already know where it is.
Yes.
It's that Pirates of the Caribbean line.
Yeah.
I love that. So we have a lot of people, I'm sure, like, you know better than I do. We've got a lot of people migrating to Idaho for a lot of the reasons that I'm sure you just described. Like maybe if you can name a couple of examples of things that you love about living in Idaho.
So I love living in Idaho for a lot of reasons. One of them that's drawing a lot of people here is the more conservative leave it to your own. Everybody just kind of tends to themselves. Nobody's really telling you what to do. There's not as many rules here. There's more space. There's not as many people. The cost of living is still, as it's rising in Idaho, it is still a lot less than it is other places in the world. And the other, in the United States, places still everywhere is having an influx of people because of the baby boom generation and the 2007 thing. So there's lots of that. But Idaho has room to expand. And so we're not stacking people on top of each other in high-rise apartments. Earlier today, I saw a listing that was like a 4-bed, 2-bath, older home in Sacramento for like $1.2 million. Here, that would sell for maybe $250,000. And so everybody needs a place to live. And if you can work remotely, COVID actually was a blessing for a lot of people because everybody learned that you can work over Zoom and the internet. And if you have a job that you can do that, you don't have to live in California to be with one of those big companies. So work for the big company where you're making a lot of money that you could afford that $1.2 million tiny little house, or work from Idaho, have a house that you are way more comfortable in with your family, and still work for that the company that you wanted to over the internet. So that has been a great blessing, and people are realizing that.
So the question that I have now, and I'm trying to make sure that I craft the question correctly, is we're obviously like we're seeing the expansion now. I think that a lot of people who are natives to Idaho would say that all those things that people love about Idaho is because we are a smaller population per capita. Do you still feel like we're going to be able to maintain that sense of Idahome, that sense of community with the expansion of our population and our infrastructure that's going to happen?
I do, to a point, because the people that want to come to Idaho, they realize that's why Idaho is the way it is, and they want to have a sense of small community, small town. Everybody kind of knows everybody. Everybody kind of looks out for each other. And I can't speak for the entire population that's moving to Idaho, but I hope that the people come to Idaho realize how wonderful it is to help your neighbor and look out for one another, and play by the golden rule. And if you are coming to a state and a town where everybody's kind and everybody works together, I hope that you also adopt that if you don't have it already, and just play by the rules here and just be kind to everybody.
I think, and I'm sure that you've noticed it too, that's probably a big, that's kind of been a concern that I've seen from people who live here, and they're seeing people coming from other parts of the country, and they worry that that's going to somehow dilute our culture. And
I know people are worried about that. A lot of people are worried about that. But I think deep down, we all have that humanity that we would take care of anybody else that we needed to. And part of that is taking care of people that don't have places to live. As simple as that sounds, Idaho has space. And so we're sharing that with other people right now.
I love that. I think that's a good way to a good mindset to have about it. What are the current trends that you're currently seeing in the home construction space here in Idaho?
Trends as in like styles of building?
We could talk about styles of building. We could talk about, because you work with a couple of different home builders. I don't know if you've had conversations with them where they've seen shifts in how they need to adapt to the current home building market. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah. So the trends that are happening, people want bigger open spaces to connect with people in their homes. Everybody's building an office now. That's a new thing. But people are also becoming a little more on the simple side. They're realizing that a house isn't necessarily what they want their life's work to be about. And so the homes are getting a little more simple. There's not as much, people are putting priorities more on experiences and environment and other factors besides just their house. So people are finding land that's closer to the mountains that they love to hike in rather than buying a gigantic mansion that they love. And the home is the central place to your life and your living and your family, but taking that experience, those experiences outside the home and bringing them back. So they're keeping life really full and their home is just full of memories and not things and stuff.
I like that. So the home is really just, and that's a lot about the same way of how I kind of live my life, is like the home is, where I can lay my head at the end of the day, but I want as much of my day to not really even be at home. Like you said, I live in Idaho. There's so many opportunities for outside things. And I guess that kind of rounds back to what the value that people are seeing in moving here and the opportunities and the experiences and the outdoor, the hiking and the camping and the water activities that they now have access to. So they want to build their homes in such a way and in such a location that they can capitalize, or not capitalize, but optimize their experiences in that space.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is very cool. Is there anything else that you would want the general public to know? Here's a good question. Because this video is going to be put on our Construction Business TV page, who specifically, what demographic of person would you want to see this video, and what would you want them to do? What kind of call to action would you want them to do as a result of having heard this information?
Demographics of people, anybody that's thinking they need some space and they want it their own. The call to action is don't be afraid. Building your own home can be a little bit intimidating, but there are people that will help you walk through every step of it. So it's not overwhelming. It's not intimidating. It can be stressful on your relationships, but it doesn't have to be. I have built my own personal home that I'm in right now. We built it on our own, and it was one of the most rewarding experiences. But it is intimidating to get started. So ask a lot of questions, find somebody that will walk you through those steps, and don't be afraid, because it's a way less stressful experience than trying to be in a bidding war right now in the market.
That makes sense. Yeah. And that, now that I'm thinking about it, I guess that would be normally kind of a deterrent to building the home, is it just feels like it would be a more drawn out, complex process than buying a home. Would you agree?
Yeah, it can be. There's a lot of decisions to make. You don't have to pick every single thing, but there are a lot of decisions. Your builder can help you minimize those as much as you want. And you can be involved as much or as little as you want. If you want a perfectly 100% custom house, absolutely you can do it. If you want a house, just make it pretty, I'll move in September, you can do that too. Don't be afraid. There's lenders that are really great working with construction loans. They're a little bit different than an average typical mortgage, because you get the mortgage before you actually are living there at sometimes, but there's great ways to work through that. That's, I think, the biggest hang up that a lot of people have, is they're not sure where to start. Talking with a lender is always a great place to start. Finding an agent that can connect you with builders and lenders that work well together is also a great thing. There's a lot of ways to find information, but don't be afraid to find it, because that's where you're gonna uncover what you want, I guess.
The other holdup it's coming to my mind, I'm now like thinking of this from the perspective of, like, I'm not a homeowner right now. So I'm now thinking of the perspective of, like, what if I were to actually give you a call after this interview and say, okay, I want to do this now? What would be my hesitations? One could be just the transition period. like you said, you were a home builder, like you built your own home. That transition period, where were you living at the time that your home was being built?
So that's a fun answer to that question. We actually chose to move into a camper while we built our home. The home that we built was 45 minutes away from where we were living. And so we packed up our kids and lived in a camper during the summer. You don't have to do that. You can stay in your home. You can find a rental if you want it to be closer to where your home is being built. There's a lot of options. You don't have to sell. If you're in a home currently, you don't have to sell it all the time to be qualified for a construction loan. If you're renting right now, but you still have good credit, those are definitely questions that you need to take one-on-one. I can't answer generally because everybody's situation is a little bit different. But also I can tell you that when we lived in a camper, we were so much more happy to get into our house at the end of it, and really just appreciated so much more all the work that we did put into it. And not everybody's situation has to be like mine. Mine is a little bit extreme, but it was what my family needed at the time. So,
and I bet those were good
there's
memories.
a lot of ways to get that. Oh yeah, good memories. My kids still talk about it. Can we live in a camper again for the weekend? Yeah.
We'll go camping. That's what we'll do.
Yeah.
And I bet I don't know how many kids you have, but I would imagine they would have to really get along to it to be able to live in that kind of a confined space for such a long time.
Yeah. So 5 kids. I had 4 at the time we were living in the camper, and they learned that they don't need a lot of stuff. They can play with each other. And honestly, it was great for my home. Like wherever we are, it was good for us to be together and have to learn how to get along. We have memories and that we will never forget because of that experience of we had to work together.
It was a
great.
Big family bonding experience.
Absolutely.
And Idaho's all about family. I think that's what this wraps up to.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think we can both say that we hope that never changes, no matter how big Idaho gets.
Yep. Yeah.
I think that's an excellent place to leave off on, unless you have any other final words that you would want to share.
Don't be afraid. Ask lots of questions. Do it. It's a great experience.
So how, excuse me, how would people get a hold of you after having heard this and after feeling more comfortable with you as a person? How would they be able to reach out to you to ask more questions?
I can put a link to my website in the comments or the chat. I'm not sure where this is being broadcast. I'm happy to give you my telephone number. You can text me, message me, call me, any of that. So.